But I basically got out of the car and I was taking photos of the scene. I mean, I was unhurt.
Right, tell me about the accident. How did it occur?
What I was doing is going down the street, and there was one of our insureds, 78-year-old lady, who had had a hemorrhage in her left eye and was driving herself to the hospital. And she was on a side street, had stopped. There was a pickup to the right of me. I was on the inside lane. He put his turn signal on to turn right onto the street where she had parked, and traffic coming the other way. She saw she could make it, saw this truck turning, not realizing that I was in the blind area. I hadn't seen her at that time either, and came out to beat traffic coming the other way, and I had probably about 25 to 30 feet. There she was. So of course I hit the brakes, skidded about 20 feet, 25 feet, and then the impact was directly into the firewall area of her car. Probably between 35 and 40 miles an hour at impact, I would guess. Which point the 89 Topaz I was driving, both doors were jammed. The car had filled with smoke. My first reaction was the car had caught fire, because there was a lot of heavy, hazy smoke in the car, and the smell of gunpowder is what it smelled like to me. And then I realized that the airbag had gone off. I basically was just totally unhurt. I had no pain. I just had known I'd been in an accident, tried to get out of the car. Of course, the doors wouldn't open. My concern was for the lady in the other car, because basically I took it right into the driver's door and firewall of that car. Witnesses had stopped and had gone to see to her, because I had waved them by. I was all right. Luckily, the police were doing radar less than 2 blocks away from the accident, so they were there immediately. The lady in the car had been hurt, and plus she had had the hemorrhage in her eye before all this had happened, and people were very concerned about that. The ambulances arrived. I refused treatment. I basically told the man I don't have anything to treat, which they made me sign a release stating that I was refusing treatment. And I mentioned to them, well, if there's something you want to treat, go ahead, but there's really not any problems. And the other ambulance team had gone to her. I had gotten out of the car by then on the right side by forcing the door open. And like I said, I'd taken some pictures of the scene of the accident, had talked to the numerous witnesses, and made sure everybody was on my side, and all the witnesses were 100% correct in what they were saying, and made sure that they had gone to the police and talked to them. The amount of damage to the car that I was in was probably about, it's ended up to be right at $6,000. The other car was right at $7,000 for repairs. The other car, like I mentioned, was an '88 Pontiac Bonneville. There's been some problems repairing the car that I was in, wholly due to the airbag, because of the inexperience of the dealer that was...
We have trouble with the... Okay, we need a second here. We're doing real well, Randy. But I don't think you can compete with that semi.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see.
We got the water there.
When we're ready to roll again, I want you to tell me what you think would have happened in the accident had you not had the airbag. And also, if you were wearing the seatbelt, could you tell me that when the camera was
good.
rolling? Okay.
I think we're still wrong.
Okay. When the accident happened and I realized the airbag had deployed, because of the fact that I had my seatbelt on and the fact that the airbag was there, I think attributed to my not being hurt at all, or my having any injuries at all. I had a sore wrist the next day. Other than that, I had no injuries whatsoever. What else did you want?
And tell me what you think would have happened if you hadn't had the airbag.
I'm sure that if the airbag hadn't have been in the car at the impact and the speed that the accident occurred, that I'm sure that if nothing else, I would have probably had shoulder injuries, I would think, from the seatbelt itself, because there was some pressure and some feeling in the shoulder and across the lap from the seatbelt, even with the airbag. But I think what the airbag does is make up that difference as far as the just the gravitational forces when when the impact occurs to eliminate any real forces against your body. Without the airbag, possibly my arms, legs may have folded up into the dash, because even though the seatbelt is across the lap and your shoulder, I would think on impact your legs would probably tend to want to come up. I don't know how the airbag would actually help in that case, but it must have kept my body far enough back in the seat so that my legs wouldn't come up and hit the dash or anything. The turn signal and cruise control lever was busted off. I don't know how that happened. Evidently this hand, at one point, I get the feeling that after the airbag expanded and collapsed, I feel that my arms must have been pushed off the steering wheel and then came, just instinctively, I was trying to hold on to that steering wheel, and I think after the bag collapsed, my arms came back in. And of course, at that time, I wasn't in the same position I was when I was holding the wheel, so I broke off the turn signal lever and hit my wrist on the side of the steering wheel.
Do you know, or can you tell me about the other driver, the lady? Did she have a seatbelt on, do you know, or did she have an airbag, and would an airbag have helped her?
She didn't have an airbag in the car, and she did have her seatbelt on. The airbag, I don't think would have helped her, mainly because the impact to her car was at the side, and she basically went into the driver's door on impact and then fell back to the right after the impact and was laying in the seat. I'm sure the airbag would have already came out and collapsed by the time. No, her first reaction would have been to go sideways, and I don't think an airbag that was in the type of car that I was in would have been large enough or have been in any way helped her to keep her from going sideways.
Can you tell me about the accident again, how it occurred?
Sure. I was traveling down a four-lane highway. On the inside lane, there was a pickup truck to my right and just ahead of my car by about 2 car lengths. The other car was parked at the stop sign waiting to go left into the other traffic. The pickup ahead of me in the outside lane put the turn signal on to turn in. And when she saw him turning and saw that there was distance between the other cars going the way that she was wanting to go, she decided to go, not realizing that I was on the other side of the pickup truck. So she came out of the side street almost at an angle to try to merge with the other traffic.
Okay, now start again.
Okay.
Just a second, so she came out. Let's give Al a chance to.
Everybody's coming down with colds.
Everybody that works with me gets a head cold. Is that right, Randy? You're going to be sick next Tuesday.
Apologize for that.
No, and you're
That's
doing a
okay.
good job explaining the accident. That's kind of confusing with the different
I
lanes
can't.
and different directions.
It's hard for me to keep my concentration.
Okay.
Where do we want to start over?
No, then you said then she decided to turn, or she came out.
Right, and she came out at a slight angle to try to merge into the oncoming traffic coming from the other way, accelerating, because she realized she had to beat the other traffic, and she had never saw me at all until the initial impact, and I believe the skid that I left was around 20 to 28 feet, something like that, before impact. The first thing, of course, I realized that we were going to hit. There was no doubt. There was no way that was going to be avoided. So basically, I just held on to the steering wheel, and on impact, I recollect a loud noise, whether it was from the impact itself or it was the airbag being deployed, but there was a bang, a noise. And the next thing I knew was the car was filled with smoke. And my initial reaction is something had caught fire. Then realizing that, and knowing that that car had an airbag, I quickly realized that it was just the airbag had been deployed. And of course, it was laying there in front of me. I have no sensation of the bag in my face or chest. I have no sensation of the airbag even working or coming out or anything about it, except that the car was filled with smoke and the bag was hanging from the steering wheel. My seatbelt was loose, had gone loose until I tried to open the driver's door. As soon as I did that, it had tightened back up against my chest and lap. Basically, I rolled the window down and let the smoke out. It was, like I said, it was hazy, kind of a thick smoke, smelled of gunpowder. And yet I knew that there really is no gunpowder that deploys the airbag. It's a chemical reaction, but that's the smell that you get. And the other lady had already been tended to from the cars that were coming over the hill behind us. One gentleman had seen everything. Well, both the people in the pickup knew right away. As soon as she started to leave, they knew that we were going to have an accident, because he could still see me in his side mirror and saw her take off, and he had mentioned to his wife, there's good, oh my gosh, she pulled out. And so he was there. It was in a residential area between two subdivisions, so there were many, many people. I got out of the car. The ambulance had already arrived and was taking care of the other person. I had no injuries whatsoever. Refused treatment at the scene from the paramedics, and began to take photos of the scene and talk to the witnesses that had came forward to give me their names, and of course I funneled them to the police. I then made a phone call to the office through the police and let them know that there had been an accident, and one of our supervisors came out and was quite impressed with the amount of ambulances and fire trucks and police cars, and he thought somebody had been killed, because of course they wouldn't tell him anything over the phone. Cars were both towed to the same location to be repaired. Actually, they were towed to the location to be held until repairs were decided to be made, because we weren't sure the car would be repaired. We knew Bloomington was interested in cars with the airbag. We thought possibly it'd be brought to an area like, service center like this to be looked at.
Randy, tell me, you were talking about the shoulder harness, and you said it went slack. Did the shoulder harness work properly for you during the accident?
As far as I know, it did.
Okay. Tell me why you think that State Farm had an airbag-equipped fleet car.
I think that State Farm realizes that, especially in the bodily injury department, that the airbag would significantly. Try that again. Yeah. Significant.
We'll make sure that.
We'll skip that word.
I think you're right. Yeah. We're in. Huh? Yeah. Randy can hear noises better than any of us. It's a lot like being in Rockford, right? Airplane noise, traffic
No,
noise.
we're getting a little bit of airplane noise. The airport just started.
Well, I accidentally got to your airport one time.
That was a thrill.
Randy was there with me. We were flying to Midway, and then the fog settled down right as our plane got there. And instead of just circling, they took us to Rockford, and we had a cup of coffee there.
Then you went back to Midway, or
Yes,
not?
yes. We were going south. That was kind of an odd way to get to Dallas.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking about why you think State Farm has airbag
Just a
equipment.
little step to your left, too.
Oh, geez, I've wandered clear away.
That's fine.
Why State Farm has airbag equipped cars in the fleet.
I think State Farm realizes that in the bodily injury department, that injuries would be greatly reduced by having airbags in all cars, not only just the company cars. And I think they felt in order to test that they would take company cars and put a few of them out into the field, realizing that things happen and that chances are one would be in an accident, and one was. I see a lot of cars every day, because I look at all the down cars, or the cars that are not drivable, that have been damaged. And most of the time I see, any time that there are injuries, especially to the chest and head, hitting the windshield, seat belts were not worn, and of course the cars did not have the airbag. So the only way, even with the seat belt on, I feel that sometimes it's possible to be on impact driven into the dash and possibly even the top of the steering wheel with your head or mouth with the conventional lap-tight seat belt, and even I think it's probably possible even with the lap and the conventional shoulder harness that we have now. But with the airbag and the seat belt, it virtually eliminates anyone from hitting anything. The only pressure that you're going to feel is from the seat belt, and the airbag is going to minimize that. So there's really not much chance of you going in or hitting the windshield, hitting the steering wheel. You know, I'm proof of that.
How about your coworkers and your family and friends? When you talk to them about the accident and talk to them about the airbags, can you remember some of the things you said to them, or they might have said back to you?
Of course, the first thing I told them was that I was glad the airbag.
Say that again, and say
Sure.
the first thing I told and whoever you're referring to.
Coworkers?
Sticking out a little too out.
Oh. Okay. The first thing that I told to my coworkers was that I was glad that the airbag was in the car, because when they saw how badly the car was damaged, and I was at work that same afternoon carrying on just as if nothing had happened, it was almost unbelievable to them. Because again, the supervisor that had came to the scene, you know, really thought everyone had been killed because of the injuries to the other party, and the police being in that area already. There were quite a few emergency vehicles there. So everyone was very impressed with the fact that really, unless I had told them that I had been in that accident, no one would have ever known. No time was missed. The only inconvenience to me was my glasses were broken, and the reason that the glasses were broken was partly due to the airbag, because when the airbag deployed, evidently the glasses were about 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches from my face due to impact, and the airbag literally blew them into the windshield, which of course actually cracked the windshield and shattered the glasses. So I had to get a pair of glasses.
Do you have a sense of whether your coworkers or even your attitude toward an airbag changed after your accident and your experience?
It changed a great deal.
Can you start again, Randy, and
Sure.
make that complete sentence for me?
How do you want it?
My question, try to include it in the answer. I
Okay.
think their attitudes towards airbags changed, or use your own words, but
Sure.
something like that.
Okay. The attitudes of my coworkers changed a great deal because of the airbag. They actually were requesting company cars with the airbag in case they had an accident, that they would be all right. Unfortunately, I had the only one at the time. Some of the people that have wanted to buy new cars have actually came to me and asked if they thought that they should get the airbag. And of course, I told them that, you know, remember that car and remember what it looked like, you know, after the accident. And right now, they found that the '89 models, they haven't had very much luck at all actually finding an airbag in the dealership lots. The 1990 models are more money, so most of the people that I work with that have bought new cars this year that wanted the airbag have settled for a different type of automatic, you know, seatbelt restraint or something that might be in the car, because the dealers just simply don't have airbag-equipped cars on the lot. Some of them have even asked the dealer, and the dealer has told them that they will get on a hotline and try to come up with an airbag car for them, but that they're very rare. There's not many to be found or had, but that the 1990 models will have, you know, automatic seat belts and things of that nature, so if they wanted to buy a new model, that they would be here in a few weeks or whatever. But they've went ahead and bought the '89 models and hoped that they got the airbag but weren't able to come up with any.
In your opinion, Randy, what do you think auto manufacturers should do in terms of producing airbag-equipped cars?
In my opinion, it should be standard, especially for the driver's side. You know, again, we see so many injuries that are due to the steering wheel. The steering wheel and the steering column, in my opinion, probably causes 65–70% of the injuries to people because they hit the steering wheel. That airbag being mounted in the steering wheel makes it virtually impossible to find yourself against the steering wheel. The airbag is only open, from what I understand, less than a second. So I could see where possibly if you were in a multi-car collision, you may get benefit from the first time, but then that's it. It's only a one-time system. Um, but I feel that, and it's being proven every day, that the cars will all be equipped with airbags of some type in very few years. I think that if they're going to equip them with the airbag system, they're going to have to train the people at the dealerships and the independent shops in order to repair them. We're running into some problems where even at the dealerships where the cars are sold, that even though the technicians and the personnel that are going to repair the cars have the manuals to repair it, they really have no understanding of what exactly to do to repair it and the importance of how, you know, every component of the system has to be correct before the car can be released back to the individual, because there's always that fear in the back of your mind when you're driving a car with the airbag system. You know, what if I go over these railroad tracks a little too fast? Is this airbag going to, you know, come out into my face and I'm going to crash into something? Myself, I never had that fear because I knew better. I mean, I know that the airbag system, I know where the sensors are located, I know how the sensors are activated, and I know that going over the railroad tracks or a bump or even hitting something in a parking lot isn't going to make the sensors react and explode the airbag. It takes a pretty good hit to make the sensors go off.
As soon as that truck gets by, I want you to tell me what you told me a little earlier, started to tell me about the difficulty with trying to repair your car.
Okay. The car was a Mercury Topaz, and the adjuster handling the file didn't realize that the car had been taken to a Chevrolet dealership mainly for holding until we decided what to do with the car. So she had given the Chevrolet dealership the okay and the authorization to do the repairs on the Mercury Topaz, which Chevrolet was tickled to death to do. They had no problem with that. But as they progressed in the repairs, they realized that the airbag system, which was completely new to them, was going to present a problem. So they contacted the Ford dealership and asked for all the technical data that they had to repair the airbag system, which Ford complied and gave them all the books that they needed. But that wasn't enough. Even though they read the books and they understood, they thought they understood everything that needed to be done, they ran into problems. And after about 2 to 3 weeks just trying to correct the airbag system, they decided to give it to the people who should know the most about it, which would be the Ford dealership. So the car was towed to that dealership because one of the symptoms of the problem that they were having is that the car would not start. That it would not be given an all clear so that it would start to where it could be driven. So it was towed to the dealership. The Ford technicians, to our surprise, had yet to have seen an airbag car. So again, they were starting off from square one with the manuals to decide or try to figure out what had happened to the car that was keeping it from being started. After 2 to 3 weeks, they couldn't do it. They just cannot figure out why the car won't start, why after every component of the airbag system has been replaced, the computer still says that there's a problem in the airbag system. Detroit's been contacted. A zone representative for Ford has looked at the car, has given suggestions as to what they need to try at this point to correct the problem, and basically they're waiting for some parts, and hopefully this will be all taken care of sometime next week.
Give me your thoughts on the fact that Ford had trouble repairing the airbag. What do you think about that?
I think it's really surprising, especially in a city the size that we're dealing with, that the amount of airbags that I have seen personally myself, that Ford had not seen a vehicle with the airbag. And it was more surprising that even though the shop had the manuals, no one had actually been sent to a training center, had actually done anything more than just receive the manuals. My understanding was the videotape is there with the manual, but up to this point, no one had actually sat down and watched the video. That's all changing right now. This car is changing that whole dealership, because now they're realizing that this isn't just advertisements in the paper, or these manuals actually have meaning, that there are cars out there with the airbag, and they're going to have to start facing them and on a daily basis, more and more as time goes by. So they're watching the videos, They're listening to the zone representatives that supposedly have the answers. And the next car, I think, will be a lot different situation. This one just happens to be the first one.
You said that you've seen several airbag cars crashed and they had airbags in. Tell me a little bit about those cars.
I've seen other cars with the airbag system. Up to this point, they've mainly been foreign cars. It's interesting that the types of, even though they're all airbag systems, that there's a great deal of difference in how they work and what the manufacturer recommends for repairing the car after a collision and the airbags have been deployed. Saab, for instance, which seems to be the extreme, if you're in an accident and the airbag deploys, you simply replace every component of the system, which includes removal of the dash, replacing sensors underneath the dash, seat belt sensors, the actual sensors that activate the airbag itself. It runs almost just $3,500 on the particular vehicle that I dealt with to take care of the airbag system itself. And proof of this is their manual for repairing the airbag. And it clearly states in no uncertain terms that every component must be replaced to be protected by Saab as far as any liability is concerned. Porsche is similar, but Porsche doesn't go to the extremes of the seatbelt sensors. All these sensors can be tested. Foreign or American, they seem to have the same criteria for the test, and that is that you put a current to them, and if they accept current, they're no good. If they reject current, they're good, down to 1 ohm, very small, minute amount. But if they can be tested to see, where they can be used again. Porsche does not recommend that. They want everything replaced with the exception of the seatbelt sensors. They can be tested. Saab wants everything replaced. Mercedes basically wants everything replaced or tested.
What's your opinion on the fact that these manufacturers want replacements rather than just simple testing?
I think the reason that they all want to replace everything is, again, because of the newness and the few amount of cars that are involved in the collision and the liability reasons and the general fear of the public that this airbag is going to come out on me for no reason and I'm going to run into something. Every car that I've seen with the airbag that's been in an accident has still been under warranty. The Mercedes and the Saab had people come in and actually take the parts that were replaced back to their headquarters for more research. So it's obvious that even though they're being put into the cars, and I know that there's been a lot of testing, they're still confirming, I think, a lot of the tests that everything is okay and that this won't happen, and this is what happens in an actual collision, in the field and not in a testing laboratory. Because there's just a great interest. Mercedes flew 2 gentlemen in from New Jersey on that particular car. Saab had someone come in from Chicago. There's a lot of interest. Everyone is, at this point, is wanting to know where these cars are when they're in an accident, when the VIN numbers are run through the dealerships and they show an airbag and they show collision parts are being ordered. Evidently the flag's coming up in headquarters and they're sending people out. They want to see it. They want to know what's happening.
State Farm has the opportunity to work with manufacturers on the airbag issue. What do you think State Farm should do, and what should we tell them?
I think we should tell the manufacturers that the equipment, especially the sensors, if they can be tested and they show to be good, then there really should be no reason to have to replace them. They need to make the part reliable enough to where if it tests good, it should be reusable. The idea of just replacing everything is just causing the cost of repairs to go very high. Like I mentioned, in the Saab alone, it was $3,500.
Now broaden your scope just a minute here and not worry just about the repair of the airbag, but the idea of making them available to customers or the design feature. What do you think State Farm should say to manufacturers about airbags?
I think the manufacturers need to tell their customers, first of all, the safety factor, the reliability of the system, the repairability of the system, that basically that the manufacturer is in position to service the system in the event that something would happen with it. And I like the idea of the airbag in the dash or coming out from under the dash rather than the steering wheel, because it does add quite a bit of a bulkiness to the steering wheel itself. And in the case of the car that I was driving, it actually hid the cruise control system. In other words, the cruise control lever, the steering column was the same as any other Topaz. But with the addition of the airbag steering wheel, because the bag is in the wheel itself, it covers all those things, and they have not allowed for that. Probably because they don't make enough of them. But so, especially in a new car, as you're trying to familiarize yourself with it, you have to look around the back side of the steering wheel to actually see the cruise control, levers.
You know, you probably talk to people about airbags and probably a sense that people are afraid of airbags a little bit. Can you tell me your thoughts of what other people think about airbags?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that I hear from people, is that they're afraid of the airbag.
Can you start again?
Sure.
And,
Okay.
as though it's not a reaction to my question.
Yeah.
Biggest thing I heard.
The biggest thing I hear from people about the airbag is their fear that it's going to, for some reason, explode into their face and cause them, to just careen off into the ditch and hit a tree or something. That is 99% of what I hear from everyone. After I had the accident, that was the first question that I was asked. Once they found out that there was an airbag, didn't that scare you when that big bag blew up in your face? In which point I tell, I have no recollection of that airbag whatsoever. Never saw it, don't know anything about it. All I know is it worked, it was laying there when I was done. But really, it's just so quick and so instant that you have no recollection of it at all, except the smoke in the car and the noise when it deploys.
An airbag costs money to put into a car, and then it costs money to repair if something goes wrong. Do you think an airbag is worth the money that it costs?
I think the airbag's worth much more than what it costs, because of the fact that you can't put a value on your face, your chest, your arms. There's I guess if you know, and today with the amount of traffic growing, and there's always that possibility that somebody's going to do something that you don't think they're going to do. And when it happens, it's so quick and it's so instant that it's just very comforting to know that there's something there that's going to help protect you if and when it does happen, because we all like to think that accident's not going to happen to us. It's going to always be the other guy that we're driving by, but sometime it might be you. And with that airbag in place, not only does it give you peace of mind, but it's also going to protect you, and there's no value like that you can put on yourself. So if it's a matter of $1,500 for a peace of mind, it seems very reasonable to me.
You said that your supervisor came to the accident.
And basically said, if you want to take the time and the money to fly down here and interview with us, you're welcome to. If we hire you, we'll pay for all your expenses. And I flew down, and next thing you know, I was running a body shop in San Antonio, Texas. And the State Farm guys always came in. They always had plenty of time to go to lunch. They always act like they were having a great time. I'm in there with this high-pressure job, and
Put this on film.
yeah, turn that camera. With paint fumes and the noise and everything, I thought, you know, there's got to be a better career than this, so that's how I ended up with State Farm. Then I transferred up here to Rockford.
Do you have time for long lunch hours now?
No. I did in Texas, but not in Illinois. It's a different ball game down there than it is here.
One thing, Randy, we wanted to do when we finished videotaping our policyholders and some others on their opinions of airbags, we wanted to use the videotape to encourage manufacturers to produce airbag cars, and we wanted to encourage our customers to buy them and put them at ease about what an airbag would do. Knowing all that and the things that you told me this morning, are there other things that you think you would like to tell me that we should capture on tape?
I think the airbag system should be put in with the automatic seat belts as a package. I think the manufacturer wanting to keep cost in line in order to sell the car and just put the automatic seatbelt in isn't enough. Even though the seatbelt is automatic, there's still that steering wheel staring you in the face, and it's just added insurance in the case of a collision that you're going to be protected. I think they need to realize that and put more airbags in more cars so that it isn't so much an added expense but a normal expense of buying the car. I think most people, if they were actually talked to by a salesman and told about instances with cars with the airbags during collisions, that most people would be acceptable to the idea of having an airbag.
Okay, we're going to do that one again. Only because we don't want the motorcycle zipping through it. That was really good if you could try to remember, Randy. Word for word, don't change one word. Right?
I don't remember what I was talking about.
You're talking
No.
about manufacturer should
Yeah, I know.
be written.
I think the manufacturer needs to start looking at the airbag as not so much as a high-cost deterrent to someone buying a car, but as an automatic safety feature along with the automatic seatbelt system in order to protect especially the driver in the car. Instead of not keeping cars on the lot because of the added cost, put more cars on the lot with the system and then train their sales personnel to sell the product just like they sell air conditioning, just like they sell automatic transmission. Those are all added options and added cost, but the salesmen have been taught to sell those options. The airbag feature's no different, and probably out of all those options the most important. They need to change their thinking and train their sales force and put airbags in every car.
Now, I know you have the opportunity to go to dealerships because you're out in the field estimating. Do you get a sense for whether or not the salesmen know how the airbags work or know enough to be able to try to sell the airbag as a good option?
The salesmen that I have seen, the only thing they know about the airbag is that it's going to add quite a bit to the car, and we've got this model right over here with the automatic seatbelt system. They don't want to get involved with it because they don't have the car to sell to people. They understand that the airbag is going to come out on impact. They don't understand that it's only a front-end impact. They think that if the car gets hit side, rear, front, that the airbag is going to deploy. My understanding is that unless it's to the front of the car, the airbag will not deploy. They don't understand that. They basically only know they don't have a car to sell that person, so why bring up the option? Why try to sell something that you don't have on the lot? So it's if someone were to ask them, I would think their first reaction would be, yeah, but they haven't got the bugs worked out of that yet, but we've got these cars with the automatic seatbelt that basically will do the same thing in order to sell that car.
Thinking back to what your supervisor, was that the one that went to the accident, your own supervisor?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking back to your conversation after the accident, what did he say to you about the airbag? Can you remember?
And when my supervisor first got to the accident, he saw the other people being tended to by the ambulance and paramedics, and I wasn't even there. At that time, I had went and sat in the police car waiting to fill out some forms. When he got there, of course, he expected the worst. He thought, that I had been hurt, and the first thing he saw the airbag, he said the first thing he saw was that the airbag had worked, but didn't know where I was at and figured I was in an ambulance. When I come walking out of the car and hollered over to him, he just really couldn't believe it. That basically was the first thing, is that airbag must have really worked, at which point I told him it had. I was glad it was there.
Later, when you were talking to your family about the accident, can you remember what you said or they might have said about the airbag?
I really didn't mention anything to anybody for a while outside of the people that I worked with, neighbors, family, because there wasn't anything wrong with me. The only time I brought it up is when the opportunity seemed to be right, but because really there just was no reason except to just talk about it. No one wants to talk about, you know, that they were in an accident, and I wasn't hurt, so I didn't really bring it up. But when it was brought up, the first thing that I would mention is that the car had the airbag, and then they would tend to understand why I was okay. The airbag was given all the credit for my being unhurt.
Let me check with Randy and see how we did on the sound.
Okay.